I think minimum 5 England players get into the combined 11. It could be more. I think the 5 guaranteed I would have is Saka on the right, Kane up front, Bellingham in midfield for sure. Any of the England right backs you want. I think any of James, Walker, or Trent are better than Pavard or Koundé. And then I would have John Stones. I think that was the one a lot of people disagreed with me with. But if we're looking at John Stones, the last few seasons, he's undoubtedly been one of the best center backs in world football. I think last season you could have made a case that he was the best center back. And I mean, it's a bit weird with John Stones, right? Because the role that he plays for City isn't that of an orthodox center back. It's one where he kind of drifts a lot into the midfield. He inverts. He's basically playing sometimes higher than Rodri. I get that. But that's the first season he ever played that role. Let's not forget the previous campaigns where he was one of the main City center backs alongside Diaz, and City defensively were imperious. I remember the year with lockdown, what was it, 2021? Him and Diaz were unbelievable defensively. You look at England's Euro 2020, Euro 2021 campaign, Maguire got a lot of the spotlight, no doubt about it. He had a great tournament. But it's Stones, who's also in there with him, looking imperious. And I think that's what people forget about Stones, right? And I always say that Stones, he reminds me of PK in a way. Not in terms of maybe quality. I'm not saying he's better than PK, but he's like PK in terms of, I think people really remember the blunders that they make. And because they're not like aggressive ace-side center backs, like the guy that they usually play with, whether it's Mascherano, Puyol, Diaz, Maguire, they're more aggressive and you can see their strengths and their weaknesses at times as well too, more obviously. They often get underlooked. But John Stones on the ball is a maestro. And defensively is extremely, extremely good. Like, I think he's very, very underrated defensively. Doesn't really make mistakes. Isn't, like, as front-footed as the guy he's next to. But in terms of his reading of the game, really, really sharp. Defensively in the air, very, very good. Never really gets beat for pace. I think he's one of the best center backs in the world. And I would have him definitely starting next to whoever you kind of want from the France side. I think Stones is one of the non-negotiables for me. So my England-France combined 11, I would have Mike Maignan goal. I think the injuries kind of stop people from really understanding how good Big Mike is, man. Mike is a terrific goalkeeper, Maignan. I'm a big fan of him. And I think the injuries really are what's stopping him from kind of universally being seen in that Alisson, Courtois, Ederson kind of subsection of goalkeepers. I think he belongs in there. I'm not saying he's the best out of all of them, but he's that standard of goalkeeper when fit, in my opinion. And then I think Trent is the best right back, but in terms of like who plays in the team, I think that's more debatable. But I'd have an England right back. Let's go Trent, because I think Trent this season has probably been the best right-sided defender in the world this year. In center back, I'd go Stones, and I think the second center back, you really have your options. You have Saliba, obviously. You have Konate. And I think even Upamecano, I'll be real, guys, gets underplayed. I know we see a lot of his stinkers, but Upamecano on his best day is unbelievable. But I don't think he's better than Saliba. I would go Saliba as my second center back next to Stones. I'd go Theo Hernandez at left back. I know I saw a lot of people trying to put Luke Shaw in there. Maybe Luke Shaw a few seasons ago at his very best could have been in conversations for that. Maybe even would have won that debate. But how little Luke Shaw plays these days and how really unreliable he is. Let's face it. Plus how good Theo Hernandez has been this season in particular, playing as a left back, even playing as a center back sometimes. Offensively, we've always known Theo Hernandez is basically a winger on the left. But defensively, I think like he's really, really upped his game these days to the point where like defensively, it's tough to kind of beat him. It's really, really tough. Saka obviously had that game in the World Cup, but I think Theo has really come on leaps and bounds the last few months to the last year as a defensive fullback. And then offensive, we know, bro, like that guy can carry the ball the entire length of the pitch and score a goal or create a chance. Theo Hernandez is easy for me. I see a lot of people saying Saliba doesn't start for France. Guys, Dani Alves used to not start for Brazil. Trent doesn't start for England. Foden might not start for England. Like, international football is not, for me, the be-all and end-all of which player is better. I think international football, a lot of the time, it's like, okay, what player fits the manager's tactical game plan? But one tactical game plan differs from manager to manager. Like, if Southgate is now the litmus test based on his lineup of who the best players in each position are, I think you're in trouble. If you're talking about pure defenders, I think Konate and Saliba are better defenders than Stones. I think like in terms of like tackling and in terms of like aggression and in terms of like winning your duels, maybe. But in terms of also reading the game, Stones is up there, bro. Stones is really, really up there. Midfield, I have 2 non-negotiables. I think Jude Bellingham is in there. And I think Griezmann is in there. At central defensive midfield, I think Rice is definitely having the better season. But who's better out of him and Tchouaméni? I think that's a toss of a coin, to be honest with you. I think both of them are so gifted. I think Rice has been one of the best midfielders in the world this year. Tchouaméni's been stop-start with injuries. He had to play center back at times. But I think when you actually just look at them as players in isolation, I think they're both unbelievable defensive midfielders. Both unbelievable. So personally, I think you can go either or there. And then up front, I think it picks itself, guys. I think, look, we have the Saka and Foden debate all the time. I made a video on that recently. But I think as an out-and-out right winger, I would go Saka. I think Saka's a better out-and-out right winger. I don't think Foden, that's his best position. So I would go Saka on the right. I'd go Kane up front easily, and I'd go Mbappe on the left. So you're kind of left in a situation there where you have, for me, 5 England players in Trent, Stones, Bellingham, Kane, and Saka, and you have 5 France players in Mania, Theo, Saliba, Mbappe, and Griezmann. And then the defensive midfield, you can go 6-5 England, 6-5 France. I think the important thing to remember when you're talking about these situations is England deservedly should have a lot of players in this team. England are one of the most talented groups of international squads on the planet. They have one of the most talented groups in world football. They have one of the most deep talent pools in world football. Now, France, of course, probably have the deepest talent pool in world football. No doubt about it. No question. But it's not like comparing England to them is disrespectful. We saw England versus France at the World Cup, and they were pretty much on a level playing field. If not, England kind of were on the front foot a lot of that game. And I think when it kind of comes down to separating England and France, France might have the higher end talents in terms of they have, in my opinion, the best player in the world in Mbappe. But it also comes down to who the better manager is. What group kind of gels together better based on experience, based on chemistry. I think Deschamps, as much as I'm kind of a critic of Didier Deschamps, I would take him every day of the week over Gareth Southgate. Does that now suddenly mean that France just have a way better team? I think it's close. So that's my England-France 11. I have Mike Maignan in goal. I have Theo Hernandez at left back. I have Stones and Saliba. I have Trent on the right. I have one of Rice or Tchouameni. I'm not too sure on that. I have Griezmann, Bellingham, Saka, Kane, and Mbappe. That's my team.